Hi and welcome to another King's Christian Collegiate Comtech tutorial. Today we are going to create a vintage record album sleeve. We're going to do something a little bit different though, and we're going to do a parody. We are going to create a Star Wars version of a Beatles album. So let's get started. The first thing we do, of course, is have our original image right here, and we want to Command J to create a copy. So I've named this already base, and now this is base copy. Everything we're going to do will happen on this layer. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we need to recreate this big box. So let's create a new layer by going to the new layer icon, and then we'll go over to our rectangular tool, and we want to make sure that our foreground color is black, and that's right down here. So this big box in front is our foreground color. Right now it's not black, it's white, so let's click this small version of it and it automatically goes to the default black and white. Now we know that the box that we draw will be black. Also up at the top, we want to make sure that this fill pixels icon is clicked as well, and simply drag out your box and let go. And we have created a new box. The next thing we want to do is to bring down the opacity of the box. So let's bring it down to about 50%. This allows us to see what's going on because we're going to place other things there and we want to position them properly. So on our new layer, we are going to open a new image. So we'll go to File, go to Open, and let's find our Stormtrooper helmet. And our Stormtrooper helmet is right here called Trooper Helmet. So double click and there it is. We're simply going to grab this icon right over here on the layer panel and we're going to drag it over to the Beatles, and of course it's too big. Command T to bring it down into size. Hold Shift so you don't lose its perspective. Hold Shift until it's in place and we'll move it into place. Maybe make it just a little bit smaller and enter. Now we've got all of these sharp edges and those are going to get in the way eventually. So we want to get rid of those. So let's go over here to our eraser tool and we want to have a soft edge, and let's just erase all around this. We want as little of the surrounding black on that image as we possibly can to be showing. This is of course going to reveal some of the things. We can see John Lennon's head in the background here now. That's fine because we're going to bring the opacity back up and cover that up. Okay, so now we've got John Lennon's trooper in place. Now we want to make a few other changes. It's a little bit too sharp, it's a little bit too crisp. We want to add a little bit of texture. So we're going to go up to Filter, to Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And about 0.5, somewhere in there is good. Hit OK. And give it a little bit of texture, so we'll go back to Filter, we'll go down to Noise and Add Noise. And it's at about 6, that might be a little too much. Let's try 5, brings it down just a touch, and click OK. Now in those original pictures of the Beatles, it wasn't pure black and white, there was a slight blue tinge to them. So we're going to make some change there too. So we're going to go up to Image, Adjustment, and we'll go down to color balance, and we'll just play with some of these balances. So we want to bring up the blues. Now that's a little bit too purple, so let's go up here to our cyan, bring it down a little bit, and we want to get rid of some of those magentas, bring it a little closer to green. This takes a little bit of playing with to get it just right. You may decide to do it a little bit differently than I am, but that's fine. I like it right like that. I'm going to hit OK. Now we can duplicate this image. So Command J, and that creates another version of that Stormtrooper helmet, and we can move it over. We're going to put it right about there. Now he's just a little bit too big, so Command T for our transform tool, and we will shorten him down a little bit. Enter, and we'll place him right about there. Now let's do that again, Command J, and we'll put Mr. Paul McCartney over here. Now we're off just a little bit, but that's alright. It's not too worrisome. People will certainly understand what we're trying to accomplish. And there, and Command J one more time for Ringo, and Ringo is down here, and he's just a little bit smaller, so Command T, and we will shrink him down just a bit, enter, and put him into place. Now, one other thing we want to do is reveal this capital record symbol, which will disappear once we bring the opacity back up on our box. So let's make that black box that we created active. Let's get our eraser tool, make sure it's at the eraser tool, soft edge, and very carefully, you might even want to make this a little smaller, just erase what we want to see. Now when we bring the opacity back up, we're at 54%, so let's bring it back up to 100. All of those Beatles disappear and all of the black fills in except that little section. One thing I want to do on our black box, it's a little too sharp, so we'll go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And that just takes some of the edge off the shape. And that's it. Click OK. So we're finished with our image already, and it looks very, very good. You can tell that it's a parody of the Beatles cover, only it's Stormtroopers. Interestingly, even though the Beatles had a number of hits, these Stormtrooper singers probably didn't have any hits, you see, because Stormtroopers are notoriously bad shots. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we want to do something with this text up here. So we want to create Meet the Troopers instead of Meet the Beatles. So we need to get rid of this section here that says Beatles. So we want to grab our brush tool over here, and then we want to make sure that our color is the same as the background color so that when we erase it, we don't leave a big smear that's a different color. So it's really easy to do. You have your brush tool, go over onto this somewhere on this spot, and then you hold down Option and left click. And if you notice now, we have grabbed the color. That color is this color right here in our foreground. And then we simply want to erase, or actually we're painting over where it says Beatles. If you hold down Shift and drag it right across, it'll make a perfectly straight line, and that way you don't accidentally erase something like I just did on that edge. Great. Now this happens to just be Arial black, so it's really a very simple text. Sometimes the text may be a little harder to figure out. You might have to do some research to figure it out. But in our case, we already know it's Arial black. It's a very basic text. So let's just go up here and we'll type in capital TROOPERS with the exclamation point. Now you notice that our color is still that white color, and we want it to be more of that browny greeny color. So let's highlight that, and then let's go down to our box over here, and let's find that kind of greeny color, which is right about there actually. That looks about right, and we'll hit OK. And we will drop this right into place. Just for reference, this color, if you want that specific color, down here it will be 6D as in David, 6D as in David again, 3, 4. That's the precise color. And we hit OK. I think this is just about right as far as the size goes. If you need to change the size, you can do so by going over here to your text panel, and you can change the text by clicking on it. You can double click and put it back and hit enter. There's a little slider here that allows you to make changes as you wish as well. We're going to use 11, and that puts it right at the spot that we want. Now again, just like the images, this is too sharp looking. If you look at the Meet the, which we left intact, it's a little softer looking, and this is a little sharper looking. Now, so the first thing we want to do is rasterize this type. So we go to Layer, Rasterize, Type. And that allows us to make changes to the type. If we tried to make changes, it would have given us a prompt to say, do you want to rasterize? And you would say yes. So we want to apply those same filters, so we'll go to Blur and Gaussian Blur, and it's already at 0.5 because that's what we used last, so hit OK. And Filter, and then we'll go down to Noise and add Noise, and it's the same again, it's at 5, so that's fine. And we'll hit OK. Now the last thing we want to do is change this little subtitle. So let's go back to our text again, and we'll go right here. Now this is too big, so let's just type our first word, the. We want it to be black, so let's go over to our color. We'll highlight it. We'll go over to our color panel, and we'll make it black. Okay. Now this time we're going to use the slider, and we're just going to bring it down so it's approximately the right size. So it's just about the same size as the text on the album. Probably 2.5. That's about right. So then let's just put that in place. We'll go back in and finish it. The first album by, this time it's the Empire's Phenomenal Pop Combo. And let's move that into place. Now it's too short, doesn't quite line up, so that's okay. We can go over to these sliders and start spreading it out a little bit. And this just takes a little bit of time and precision. That's about right. And now let's just bring that color down a little bit. It's a bit too black. I'm going to make it a little more gray. It's a bit too gray. Somewhere in about that range. Okay. And of course we have to reveal what we have behind. So let's go back to our base copy and get our brush again. And we will grab that background color, hold shift, and just drag it across. And it's only going to erase that straight line. Now we have to go back to our text layer, and then we'll add filter, blur, Gaussian blur, rasterize the type, okay. It's the same, so okay. Then we'll go to filter, noise, add noise, and okay. So we have created our album. Now let's give it some texture. So let's open our textures. We've gone ahead and chosen them earlier. So we'll go to File and then Open and find our album texture. So let's look for our album cover texture, record sleeve damage, double click, and there it is. And then we're simply going to grab it and drag it over. Make sure it's on the top layer. So it's going to drop somewhere in your layer panel. Just make sure it's on the top. It's too big, so let's Command T and bring it down to the appropriate size. And we're just going to size it to that shape, our initial album cover shape. And there we go. Click Enter, and then we're going to our blend mode. Go to Blend and Screen. Now it looks like an old record sleeve that has been slid in and out of a stack of records all the time. If you wanted to add a little bit more, I have another texture as well. So we'll go to Open, and Worn Paper Black is the one I have. And it just has a few extra creases and things. So let's bring that over. And we'll drag this over as well. Same thing, fit it to the right size. This one's much larger, which is fine. This one has some fingerprints on it and things like that. Nice little touch. It's got a few tears in the paper, so we can fit that into place. Enter and Screen. And now we have a few extra creases, a few extra textures. And that's it. Take it out, play the A side. Obi-Wan Obli-Da is probably the best, with the exception of maybe I Want to Hold Your Hand. Thanks for watching.